So yeah, welcome everyone to AI Agents Made Simple. Unleash the power of all your data with any AI. And I am joined today by 4 fantastic presenters, including a special guest speaker. I will pass things over to Dimitri to introduce himself.
So I'm Dmitry. I have been with SAFE for 20 years, just celebrated it in January. And my role is to play with all the new cool things that we add to the product and present it to the world. Chris.
Hey, my name's Chris. I lead our customer solutions team here at Safe Software. So we really focus on helping organizations get the most out of the FA platform. Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Don Murray. I'm a founder and CEO. And yeah, I just love what I do. And I get a chance to play with and look at where data is going and help drive this exciting group of people forward. And I get a chance to work with Dimitri and Chris and a team of others and amazing partners. And yeah, loving life. And over to Siobhan.
Oh, thanks, Don. Hi, I'm Siobhan Ryan. I'm a technical specialist in the team at Vivian Tenzing based in the UK. And I'm excited to be here today to chat around AI and FME. And yeah, can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Just quickly here, if you are new to Livestorm, if you have any audio issues, you can click that help button on the bottom left there. And then we do have some polls coming up very shortly after a couple slides here, so keep an eye on that polls tab. And if you have any questions as well, keep those or drop those into the questions tab rather. We will have some time at the end for Q&A, a few minutes at least, and then we'll also keep an eye on it as we go through here. And then you can also share your emoji reactions with us as we go along. So feel free to use that react button. All right, and if you'd like to download the slides to follow along live, you can click that handy download button on the top right of the PDF, or you'll also find it under notes and handouts as well. So a couple options there. And the peak of data and AI. So if you didn't catch at the beginning, we have that coming to Seattle, Washington this year, May 6th to 8th. We hope to see you all there. Very exciting. Just feels crazy that it's only a few months away now. All right, and we will start off with a poll. We would love to know how familiar you all are with AI agents going into today's webinar. So I've published that poll under the polls tab. I'll give everyone a moment to place their votes. And we already have the majority of votes here. So it looks like most people are somewhat familiar. They know what they are, but they haven't built one. And then also another large chunk, 40%, where this is all new to them. So yeah, certainly a lot of learnings to be found today. We'd also love to know, which AI services have you worked with to date? And I have made this poll so you can select multiple. And I've published that now as well. Any ideas as to what we might expect for this one, team?
Oh, I think we're seeing exactly what we were expecting with OpenAI off to a commanding lead at the start, but very interesting to see that there are quite a few who are using locally hosted models as well.
Yeah.
Very neat. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your insights there. And with that, I will get our presenters to turn off their webcams just to save on some bandwidth for the remainder here. And I'll pass things over to Don for our agenda.
Yeah, thanks. Just really quickly, quick introduction just to set the tone on what you're going to see today. And then we'll look at all data NAI workflows. Christian's going to show us some stuff. Then we're going to see some real-time automation, dynamic parameters. Christian's going to, again, walk us through some of that. And then we're going to have our guest speaker, Siobhan, show us what they're doing with an agentic workflow demo. And then Dimitri is going to give us a sneak peek of some technology that's not available, but will be revealed at the peak. And then yeah, just some wrap up. Yeah, just to set the tone. So first of all, what are AI agents? The first thing with ChatGPT is it's prompt driven. You as a user, you enter text, you get response, and you have a conversation. AI agents use the same technology, but they're autonomous. And so they're doing it in the back. So you'll see in this workflow, you'll see Christian and Dimitri, they will have used automations or workflows triggered in the back based on what the user's doing. And so they're just automatically done. The user himself is not aware that AI is being used. He has no control over when it's being used. It's just being used automatically. And you can do tasks like data quality. That's one thing you're going to see. That's a theme with this webinar. We didn't strive to build a theme, but from Christian, you're going to see his thing improves the data quality on some import. Improves the data quality by pushing the data quality right to where data is being collected. And then Dimitri shows AI agents being used to improve data quality in the field. Other things, of course, data extraction. And again, you're going to see that with Siobhan, with information being pulled out of imagery. And the other key thing is this is all being done in this webinar in real time. Again, pushing QA as close to the user, both in where it happens, but also in real time. And then, of course, you combine all this with the other processing capabilities of automation, and really amazing things happen. So yeah, the future of AI and data pipelines is clear. You can't talk about data without talking about AI, and you can't talk about AI without talking about data. And again, this today is just a real small sneak peek of what you're going to see if you come to Seattle. And there's going to be lots of discussion. So if you want to come and just engage in some really interesting discussions, that's really great. I always view the presentations as seeds for discussions that go on. I'm going to be there from the early morning to the last man standing every day, so I get a chance to talk with as many people as possible. And like you, we at SAFE are coming to learn. We're coming to learn from you. This area is moving so fast. And so we're really looking forward to it. All our partners will be there, and many folks from SAFE. Yeah. So what you're going to see today is you're going to see, just so as you're seeing these things, you don't have to ask yourself, what's the point of this? You're going to see from Chris, you're going to see AI-driven schema mapping that's really going to enhance the data quality when you receive data, that the schema can vary from use case to use case. And then Siobhan's going to show us some amazing thing with real-time meter reading, reducing costs, and again, increasing accuracy. And then Dimitri's going to show us some AR, and again, combining QA. And the thing to note there is some of the QA that's being done by Dimitri is on geospatial data. And you'll see he didn't have to do anything special. It's in his prompt. And so we can talk more about that. But when it comes to AI, spatial data is not special. It's you get it in GeoJSON, and then the AI can do amazing things on it, and you're gonna see that as well. Yeah. So with that, I believe I'm handing it off to Chris. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, for sure. I can take it over from here.
Okay.
Yeah. So FME is the only all data any AI platform. We have a vast reader gallery and writer gallery that allows us to read and write hundreds of different formats that you're seeing kind of a teaser of the categories here on the screen. When it comes to the any AI portion, we also have capabilities to interact with any of the AI services, whether they are cloud hosted or locally hosted. And that is due to our capabilities of interacting with REST APIs through the HTTP caller, the Python caller for any Python-based ones, and any other means that you need to integrate with these services. So some of the pre-built ones that we have available today are the Amazon Bedrock connector, the Google Gemini connector, Ollama connector, as well as the OpenAI connector. So there's a ton on the FME Hub. If you haven't already explored the FME Hub or discovered these using the quick add menu, I definitely encourage you to start typing on the canvas to see what service pops up there, or go to the FME Hub. It's linked in the slides here. Going into a little bit more detail on that, of course, all of these are just the front ends to connecting to the service. The actual models themselves are supported through the parameters within those custom transformers. So this is where you can deploy your own model and interact with that in an FME workspace. You don't have to use the generic models that are available by those cloud services or through Ollama. Whatever service you are trying to connect to, you'll be able to connect to the model specifically that you would like to build your workflow with. So let's dive into an example of a real-time automation in action. If you caught the Google Gemini webinar last week, this is going to be a very similar example of how to execute this. The only difference is going to be we're showing this with multiple AI services at this point. So what are we going to be showing off here? This is an agentic schema mapping workspace, or automation rather, that is going to be combining the best of both worlds, where FME, as we just described, has the ability to read and write a number of different formats. So this is going to help us by allowing us to ingest any number of data files and data types from any of our data providers, leverage the power of AI to do some intelligent parsing or concatenating. I'll go into more details about what the exact use case is here. But this is going to be really combining the best of both worlds. We're taking FME's dynamic workspace capabilities to read in the data. We're using the AI services capabilities to perform all the manual steps that would otherwise have to be created to build out a workspace. So this will make it a fully dynamic workspace and AI driven. And then the results of this are going to be a standardized output. So I'll switch to that last one. So the key here is that we're going to be working with address data. As you're probably familiar with, AI address data comes in all different types of formats. It can be as a single column, it could be multiple columns, it can be a combination of the two. So it can be highly variable, and this can be a very big challenge for data integration pipelines. Now, address data is obviously one simplified example of this. You could use this replicated for any number of different data types or representations of data as well. And of course, this is also a hybrid between spatial data, because there may be a point associated with that address, or there may not be, and you may need to geocode it. Fortunately, you have all these tools at your disposal, and these can all be built into that single FME workspace, which of course can be published to FME Flow, automated using automations, or using workspace apps as well. So the key challenge here, as I've just described, is we're going to be working with address information. And as I just mentioned, address data can be very variable. So it can come in any number of schemas, and this can be a big challenge because you either have to maintain separate workspaces to handle exceptions, or build kind of one-off workspaces to handle each schema. Or you could go with this approach where you're leveraging AI services to take care of all of that effort, where it'll perform that schema mapping. All you're doing is using FME to read in the file, pushing it to the AI service, allowing the AI to do the concatenation or parsing, and putting it into a standardized format, which is what on the right-hand side of the slide here, so that it can be used for downstream processes, whether this is being prepared for a data portal, an open data portal for internal or external users, or perhaps another process is dependent on the data being structured in this manner, but you're just not receiving it that way. So this is where it's really beneficial to leverage the best of both technologies by having an FME workspace that leverages this AI service to perform an action on the data. This is where that agentic portion is coming in here. It's actually doing the schema mapping for you, so it can be used downstream for consumption. So what makes this possible? The schema variability solution here is, again, we're just going to be using the AI services and using all the features that are available with it. Something that has been recently reduced is called structured outputs, and this allows you to define the JSON structure that you would want the results of the schema, or results of the model to return. So it's not going to give you any extra fluff or any additional characters. It's only going to give you the JSON. Now, FME is also very strong with JSON. We have a host of JSON transformers like the JSON extractor, JSON flattener, and JSON fragmenter. And all of these can be used to, again, prepare your data so that it's structured and can be used for consumption downstream. Again, you have a ton of options with what you actually want to do with that output. So let's take a look at what this is actually going to look like in action. I'm going to go over a basic demo where we're going to show off an automation that is going to be watching a directory for a file to be received. It's going to process that data and use the dynamic workspace and the automation to push it to the AI service to perform that schema mapping process. And then it's going to output the results into an output folder, which again, can be used for any number of reasons downstream. Obviously, the key block here that we've harped on is that inconsistent schemas are extremely challenging to deal with, and this makes it so that it is very easy to work with. You built one workspace, the AI model takes out all of the heavy lifting of this, and obviously the results of this is that now you have a standardized data format or data file, or this could even go into a staging database, for example. All of that is ready for consumption downstream, so you're not waiting and there are no lags in any of the data integration pipeline steps. All right. This is what everyone's been waiting for. Let's actually take a look at how this works. So I'll share my screen here. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is FME flow hosted. This is going to be just a basic automation where we're going to be watching for two separate directories. As I mentioned with the address information, it can be the pseudo spatial format. So we're going to take two examples. We'll work with a spatial example here first, and I'll just upload a GeoJSON file. So this is going to include a geometry field. Let me just use the upload button. So we'll take the GeoJSON file and we'll upload this to a folder. Now this is a local resource folder on FME Flow, a Flow hosted rather, but this could also be an SFTP site, an FTP site, or an Amazon S3 bucket, for example. Any number of any of the triggers that are supported by automations would work here. So I'll also upload a tabular file as well. So let's take in tabular file 2, for example. So as soon as those files have been uploaded to that resource or that directory, whatever we're watching to trigger this automation, that's going to start the automation. And in this case, what I'm doing as the first step just for a paper trail is I'm logging that information or that event so we can see a file was received at this time. At that point, I'm now determining whether it is a GeoJSON file or a CSV file. So simply just checking, is it a spatial file? Is there geometry associated with it? Or is it a tabular file? Because they're handled slightly differently. This is just two slightly different workspaces. What's going on here in this workspace is if I go in here and zoom in a little bit so you can see, we're doing nothing special here. It's simply a dynamic workspace where we're reading in the file and converting it to a CSV. Now you might be wondering, why did I choose CSV? But you can pick any text file. The reason for this is so that you can use the text in a prompt downstream. The models are obviously multimodal, but I'm using CSV because it's just easier to handle here. So we're simply just reading and writing to CSV. Then we're bringing in the CSV file, which we can separate the schema from the data rows, which is what's happening here. Putting those together, and we're applying that in a prompt, in this case with Google Gemini. Of course, this works with OpenAI and Llama or any of the locally deployed models you have here as well. But in this case, I'm using Gemini just to showcase how you can separate these out, provide a huge context window with the full data set, and have excellent results coming back. The key here, as I noted, is the JSON structured outputs here. So this is something that you can use to ensure your results are coming back consistent every time. So we are going to expect the results to be formatted as administrative area, country, locality, postal code, and street address as well. And you can also note that I'm just going to highlight here on the bottom. These are required fields. This is where you can be strict or lenient with your results. So you can choose whether they are required or not. Okay, and this workspace is actually, or this automation rather, is actually pretty quick to execute. So at this point, if I just give this a refresh, the two new files have come in. It only takes about 30 seconds, but of course, explaining the demo is the long part. It only takes about 30 seconds to run, but we have our two new files that have been created, and we can see the expected results are exactly as the schema that we have defined in that workspace. So again, regardless of the schema that is coming in, you're always getting a consistent result on the other side, which is fantastic. Okay. Let's hop back to the slides for a second here. So the key benefits of this are obviously efficiency, accuracy, scalability, and cost effectiveness. You're leveraging AI services which are getting cheaper and cheaper by the day. And this is something that would otherwise have to be a manual process, which can be extremely time consuming, very tedious, and doesn't add a ton of value to the organization. This actually frees up your staff members from having to do tasks like this so they can perform other high value tasks for your organization. So where can you get started with doing this? The key here would be to leverage AI agents in your workflows, because again, this is where the agents are actually taking action on the data and performing something downstream, whether it's being used in an automation or an FME Flow workspace app. So you can get started by downloading the latest AI transformers. This is available in the Google Gemini connector and the OpenAI ChatGPT connector, and we're working on the AWS Bedrock connector as well to support structured outputs. So depending on what AI services already support this, we're slowly rolling those out. The next thing would be definitely take a look at the Getting Started with JSON tutorial. This is a fantastic resource so you know how to actually handle the results, because fragmenting and flattening is obviously important in this if you want to have a consistent schema on the outside, on the output rather. So definitely check out the Getting Started with JSON tutorial. It's very helpful. Third one is really just a simple tip to help you generate your structured output. So if you're not familiar with JSON to begin with, you can actually have the models generate them for you. So on Google Gemini, as well as on ChatGPT, they do have examples of sample structured output schemas. So that'll give you a sample of the JSON, which you can actually use in the chat playground to generate one specific to your data integration process. So this will allow you to be a little bit more hands-off with the JSON rather than having to build out the whole file. All right, now it's time for a sneak peek with FME 2025. So we're going to be talking about dynamic parameters, and again, how agents can be used in this process as well. So dynamic parameters are something that are new to the FME platform. You may not have seen this before, but we're going to start off by just introducing what published parameters are. Published parameters are a prompt for input at runtime. So you may have seen these in FME Flow workspace apps in the past, or maybe you're already familiar with published parameters and how they work. But essentially, you have a number of different types. We're going to be focusing on the choice type, which is effectively just a drop-down menu. With dynamic parameters, this is something that is going to be, the values will be updated dynamically based on the input of a separate file, of the results of a workspace, or also a remote file. So there's options with how you can actually have these configured. So no longer will you have static lists. This is actually going to be dynamic and updated depending on the action that you have chosen in that dynamic form configuration. The dynamic form configuration Docker is JSON based. So this means we can actually use the JSON structure from AI models and receive files, send it to an AI model, which will then, obviously using those structured outputs, prepare the JSON so that it can be used in the results of this. So the dynamic parameter JSON file, we can use an AI service to produce that and then have it ready so that when users are uploading files, say for a geocoding use case, they can upload a file, the AI service will scan the schema and then load those values into the workspace app parameter values. So we'll see how this works. It probably sounded a little bit more complicated than it actually is. So this makes it a user-guided workflow. So what we just saw in that previous example is an automation where it's completely hands-off, where a file simply arrives, the AI agent takes over the rest of the way, it performs the schema mapping, it creates the output, and everything is handled there. In this case, you want an intermediate step where you want the schema to be derived from a file that is uploaded by a user. You want the AI to choose that mapping for this mapping and do a best guess analysis on what fields belong where. But you also want to have that step where a user should actually have a quick verification to ensure that the model has done this correctly. So you have the option to do this as an FME Flow workspace app or as an automation, depending on your needs. So we'll take a look at how this is going to work. Obviously, the goal here is to make the geocoding process a little bit faster and smoother for your end users. Maybe they don't want to spend time configuring all these fields. So this is a great opportunity to leverage AI services. The block here is that, again, if you don't leverage AI services for this, it's really hard to do. You're going to get inconsistent schemas. So again, we're focusing on address information because this is the common challenge across various industries. So this is a very easy and simple way to explain this challenge. The keys and results here are obviously to, again, use AI agents to produce those dynamic parameter and attribute mapping files, as well as to accelerate the creative and intuitive user experience on the other end. So we'll take a look at this here. So what we're looking at is an FME Flow workspace app. This is a very simple way to make FME accessible to more users in your organization. They don't need to know how to configure automations. They don't need to know how to construct a workspace in FME form. All they need to do is be able to upload a file. So I'll just upload this here. My drag is working now, that's perfect. So I have a very similar file where it's just going to be called file1. I'll hit run. And what I've done is actually nested another FME Flow workspace app inside of this. So the results of this workspace will be streamed back. We'll just have to give it 1 second here. Apologies, it's running a little bit slow as I'm connected to VPN. So that is off to the races. What's happening there is when I hit run on that first workspace, essentially it's putting it into a local resource on the FME Flow instance. Once that file has arrived there, the dynamic form configuration is being executed by a workspace that has run. So in a second here, I'm not going to move my cursor. You'll see that the default values are going to update. So that's the best guess from the AI service, where it says, I believe the address field should be mapped as the postal address, city is postal city, state is state province, and then so on and so forth. So it's a very simple example of, instead of a user having to drop down and configure all of these, of course, they can still override this if this is an incorrect guess by the AI model. Now you're having a fully AI-driven best guess at what field should be mapped where. And again, this could be configured as an automation. This just shows a little bit more in real time what's actually happening behind the scenes. So I'll do it with file 2 just so you can see the differences, because I believe the schema is quite different here. So it should be in Gemini. Let's use file 2 this time, and we'll hit run. Okay, so the same thing should be happening here, where now it's using a completely different schema, where for address we have house number, city is municipality, state province is prov, and so on and so forth. So you can see a very simple example of how this actually works behind the scenes, which is fantastic. Dynamic parameters are a great fit for AI agents. So you could see why I was excited to get this tested. And fortunately, Don approved us sharing this here today. So if you want to see more of it, obviously, we'll hope to see you at the peak. So what's going on behind the scenes, no different than what I showed in that first example, is just using AI, an AI ChatGPT connector, OpenAI ChatGPT connector in this case, with structured outputs. Again, one of the other keys is using the JSON transformers that you already have available to you in the FME platform. So the JSON flattener as well as templater are extremely helpful here in creating the required JSON for dynamic parameters. So these will, of course, be coming soon. You'll have to be a little bit patient while we continue to do the final touches on this. But again, this makes AI very helpful for the user, the end user of FME Flow workspace apps, should you use dynamic parameters in your use case. And at this point, I will hand things over to Siobhan so she can talk about her agentic workflow.
Cool, thanks Christian. Really excited to have a play with dynamic parameters in 2025. In this workflow, we're going to go through an agentic workflow validating images that come through Survey 123. For this demo, we have engineers out in the field that are collecting data from electricity meter readers, and we're using an AI agent to validate the data that is being collected. We have lots of different engineers out in the field, on sites capturing information. It might be really cold and their fingers are a bit frozen, or they might be wearing safety gloves. They might even have gone for these glasses that day so they can't quite read the numbers on the meter reader. So obviously there's always a chance that there could be some human error that creeps into their submissions. And so it's always useful to use AI to validate that data that's coming in to ensure and maintain our data accuracy. So for this, we're going to be using ArcGIS Survey 123 to collect the information, and then FME Flow with an automation to use Google Gemini to validate those images. So what this workflow looks like, so we have our survey coming into ArcGIS Online, which then triggers a webhook in FME Flow. So for that in FME, then we are running a workspace that sends that image to our Google Gemini as our AI service today, but obviously FME, that any AI platform, you could be using a local model if you have any security problems or issues to validate that image and send that validation back to FME, which then updates our record in ArcGIS Online, as well as real-time sending a message to the engineer in the field if there's any validation issues that are picked up. So what that looks like behind the scenes, we have an automation that is set up with a webhook trigger from Survey 123. So that URL is pasted into our automation here in FME Flow. And so every time a new record is submitted, it triggers that event and our workspace runs. If you're interested in setting up webhooks with that kind of process in mind, there's a great article in the FME community. I recommend you go have a read and have a play yourself. So let's have a look at our data being collected. So here we have our meter reader and our survey is being collected on the right-hand side. And so they're filling in the information, taking a photo and capturing that serial number we see, as well as the meter reading as well. When they submit that from Survey 123, it then triggers this workspace to run. So let's have a look now at our demo. So in this first bookmark here, we're just reading in that parameter information from our JSON response in Survey 123 and that webhook, and reading in those attributes. In the second bookmark here, we're just reading in again from our service in ArcGIS Online to retrieve the image attachment and reading that in and getting it ready to send to our Google Gemini AI model. This next part here, we're then going to have a look at creating a prompt for our AI agent. So there's a lot of text here, you don't need to read it all, but what we're telling it is that it is an AI agent tasked with validating an image that is being received, and that we want it to create a JSON output of our validation. We want it to tell us 4 things. We want to know if there's a meter reader in the image, that the meter reader is an electricity meter reader, and we want it to know the serial number and the meter reading in the image. And from that, we want that specific output schema in JSON. So then all we're doing is creating our upload body with the image and the prompt to then make the API call to Google Gemini, but obviously that could be any AI service that you have available to you, or a local one if that's what you're after. So then we're going to extract our JSON response and have a look at our validation of the data. So now we can see from that response that yes, there was a meter reader picked up in the AI validation, and yes, it was an electric meter reader. We can see that the serial numbers down the bottom here match, but that reading value that we saw doesn't quite line up. From there, we're just going to validate and update that service in ArcGIS Online. We're just going to write back out to our feature service using the update feature operation to add those 4 attributes to our feature service. And then from there, with a bit of data validation, we're going to send that response back to our engineer in the field to let them know, hey, the meter reading didn't quite match up. Please go and check your survey response, and they have an opportunity to fix that. So that's our demo. Back to the slides, perfect, thank you. So we can see now that we use the Telegram custom transformer from the FME Hub. So we sent a text message to the person saying, hey, go check your meter reading. Other options might be to include images with that as well. The Twilio SMS sender is also another great custom transformer in the FME Hub where you can send SMS texts or WhatsApp messages to people as well. But as a result, we can see that the user gets a notification that the submission had an error in the response. This will be really useful in that real-time alert scenario where the engineer is in the field and they can go back and fix their errors and address those. In scenarios where that real-time response might not be possible, where the survey is delayed and being sent, or they don't have cell reception, you might utilize the AI agent in a different way where you validate the data and then send that to office-based staff who can then go look at the reports that have been flagged for further investigation. You might even take things a step further with this, where you have multiple AI agents that respond to incidents, where instead of capturing meter readings, you might be using agentic AI to roll out different protocols in response to power outages or incidents across the network, and then you can notify the appropriate teams. But overall, I think agentic AI will prove to be quite useful in the data validation space where we have these kind of scenarios and we want to ensure that our data is accurate. And with FME, we have the ability to orchestrate and automate these validations in real time, so it could increase our efficiency and save us heaps of time and money and improve our overall data accuracy and integrity. If this is something you're interested in exploring a bit further, FME and AI, here at Avignon Tenzing, we offer a free skills booster, all focused on using FME with AI. It's a 60-minute session where we provide you with all the setup you need. So all you need is your browser, and you get a chance to have a play around with some of the different AI models that are available and different custom transformers with FME. It's on the 4th of March, and we have 2 different times that we're going to be running it at. So 11 a.m. in the morning here in the UK and 5 p.m. I put a few different time zones on this slide. If you're interested in it, there's a QR code here to sign up, and we'd love to have you all there. That's all from me. Thank you very much for having me. And if you have any questions about the stillbirth or anything you saw, feel free to flick me an email. Cheers.
So it's now my turn. I will share my screen. So I will show how we can integrate artificial intelligence with augmented reality. In a minute, you will see a sneak peek of our upcoming augmented reality app. The big reveal comes to our peak of data and AI in Seattle. So sign up for this conference, come to my workshop where I will be talking about creating AR experiences. It really will be fun. Today, I will show you 2 agents, which in our case means 2 workspaces. The first one helps filing field reports using audio input from field worker and then transforming it into a professionally looking report. And the second one runs QA analysis on selected features, taking into consideration not just attributes by themselves, each value separately, but in the context of other attributes and also taking into account geometry. What is really important here, so it does not have to be augmented reality. So those 2 workspaces, 2 agents can be plugged in anywhere in any workflow, any workspace. So it's up to the creators of the workspaces or the workflows to find the best place for them to plug them into the workflows. And the users don't even have to be aware about these agents existing at all. So now maybe, Elizabeth, if you could run the video for me. So this is our augmented reality app. You can see some assets here. Here I'm standing over a manhole. You can see the weather was beautiful, like really sunny, but it was really cold. And really typing when it's cold, fingers are freezing and the sun is blinding, so it's hard. So wouldn't it be better to just maybe say something and do the rest? So maybe you can see lots of interesting buttons here. It's what is inside this app, and that's what not our developers created, that's what I created. And why this is important, not because it's me, but because I'm just an FME user. It means that everybody will be able to do something like this. But that's just another side of this sneak peek. But here, and I'm pressing a button, and listen carefully what I'm saying. Some disgusting white stuff is clogging this catch basin. We need to clean it. In a second, this whatever I said appears right here. You can read it, and now we can submit it. And now the agent begins working. And I will show you in the workspace how it all looks like behind the scenes. The catch basin is clogged with some white substance and requires cleaning. So it put it a little bit more professional. Here's another one. Again, listen to me. I run the agent again. Make the recording. Течет противная коричневая жидкость. Нужно срочно починить. Фу. So the text will appear here, but I will translate that for you. Disgusting brown liquid is leaking. We need to repair it as soon as possible. Yuck. And then I submit this report, and in a second, an unpleasant liquid is leaking and urgent repairs are needed. You also can see that we get all the additional information about the feature and attributes, the location, and so on. So I didn't write that, so I don't have a strictly formatted template for that. I just ask AI to create a report from the existing attributes. You will see that in the workspace. And now let's have a look at the second agent, the QA agent, checking quality of the data. And here we will see a pretty good example. So I'm highlighting this drainage pipe, the dark blue one, and run QA report agent. And it gives us some problems it found. For example, grade. So for gravity-driven drainage net, negative have to flow uphill, which is not quite right. So we probably have a problem with this attribute. And you also can see that it's a slope, and it could probably happen when it's really flat area, but not here. We certainly see a slope here. We also can see that we detected two vertices really close to each other, but the main problem is below. And so the up elevation, the elevation of the pipe at the top is lower than the elevation down. So, and that's actually tells us something is not quite right with the measurements. And we also see that it calculated the grade according to the length taken from the geometry. And it is different from whatever we see in the attribute. And I didn't come up with this. I just gave this data set to AI, and it reported, you have a problem right here, when I did it for the first time. I took that and put into a prompt on just not to leave it for a chance, but originally AI helped me to detect this problem. So it means that it took into account everything. So the attributes and the geometry itself, and analyzed it all together. And then I check another pipe, the sewer behind it in a sec. Not that one, yeah. Run it again. And here we have some medium problems or some correct information. So this is it. We can now switch back to our presentation. Thank you, Elizabeth. Here is the workspace. I probably better open the workspace itself. Bring it to the screen. This is the workspace, and the parts are very simple. Here, I just read a feature that I point at in my augmented reality. It's just a parameter that comes from augmented reality to FME flow. In this case, it's SQLite, but it can be anything. Then I transform that feature, whatever format that was, could be shapefile, could be DWG or ArcGIS, anything. I transform it into a GeoJSON with this trick. I write it as GeoJSON using dynamic writer. So I send the schema and the feature itself to a feature writer, and then I read it back right away as a text file, and that gives me a GeoJSON as an attribute. Ideally, we should have a transformer for that, but for now, this is the trick. And then I write my prompt, and what is most important is that a couple of places. So whatever was said, interpret it and put it into, express it in a formal professional English. And then I ask to bring me back a structured output, just an HTML file, not the whole HTML, just a snippet, the paragraph that you saw in the beginning of the report. Right here. So this one, this little snippet, and the rest comes from the HTML that I prepare right here. Here is my response. It's just a paragraph that goes here, and the rest is just populating the attributes from the same GeoJSON, my source GeoJSON, and displaying it, streaming it back to the user. And the second workspace looks very similar, basically not very different. All the same steps, just the prompt is a little bit different. So I explain all the validation rules here and ask for JSON for me to arrive back. Here is an example and the structure of this JSON. And I use this. So then I send to one of the AIs. So you can see here Gemini, you can see OpenAI here. And this Mistral I added in the very last moment. I just was scrolling through LinkedIn and saw that Mistral released their own chat, and I decided, why don't I just try it? And if I go inside OpenAI, custom transformer, and check how it looks like, so basically just cleaning the input, sending an HTTP request, and then extracting some JSON from it. And if you go to Gemini, basically the same thing. So the only difference are the endpoints, maybe the different API key, and this is it. And then I send that to HTML, the response, and insert my source data and insert my response here, and then process in this HTML with some JavaScript. I didn't write a single line of this JavaScript, of course. ChatGPT did that for me because I'm not a developer, I'm just an FME user, and then send it as HTML back to my field worker. And I think this is it from me.
Fantastic, Dmitry. Yeah, so while Elizabeth pulls up the slides again, just a few things. One thing to note is the workspaces for all of this stuff are incredibly simple. When I used to travel on the road, I used to say, I used to have a 10 transformer or less rule, simply because I wanted the audience to be able to understand it, not because it was really a goal. But yeah, but these ones are all simple, and the prompt is really special. I'll say more after this poll.
Looks like so far that poll has been launched, and it is looking like people are very interested in this.
Nice. That's great. So
yeah, we do have quite a few people saying maybe depends on the content. If you have specific content in mind that you would feel like would be the most valuable, I believe we send a survey out after this webinar. It would be great to hear your feedback on what specific content you'd be interested there, or also just in the chat here if you're able to type that in quickly. But apologies, Don, back to you.
No worries at all. Yeah, that's great. And thanks for that, Chris. In summary, there's a few things I want to say. The workspaces are really simple. One thing that I really wanted to point out was nowhere in Dmitry's prompt did he mention the word Russian. He just said, if the language is not English, please translate it to English, which is really amazing because ChatGPT was also recognizing, wait a minute, of all the spoken languages, this one's Russian. And so that really empowers, your field worker. Many users out there, yeah, they do speak English, but they have a native language, and that's the one they think in. And so if you can empower your workforce not only to do their job, but just say, yeah, talk in, your native language, and then it automatically translate. Again, the more we can reduce the cognitive load of people so they can focus on their task at hand, the better. And yeah, and also just talking to any AI. So so this summary here just highlights just a few things we saw. You're going to see QA is everywhere on it. And again, if you can push QA to where the data is being collected before it gets into your system, which was Siobhan was showing, that is really key, because then you're not having other AI or any other workflows making decisions on bad data, right? And then Dimitri showed that if you convert the data to GeoJSON, then in the prompt, you can get it to analyze the geometry to give you, and that's again, making sure the data map is correct. And again, in the field, right? And really, really exciting stuff. So yeah, the next slide. Yeah. And yeah, so a little bit about FME. We're the only all data NEI platform. Our whole thing is give you a choice, right? Now, we're not going to tell you where to store the data. We're not going to tell you where to run your data. We're not going to tell you what cloud to run in, or if you have to be on cloud. The world's got so many choices. We want to give you all the choice. Use whatever data tools you want, store it wherever you want, run it wherever you want, use any AI you want. And we just bring it all together, because at the end of the day, we talk about customer obsession at SAFE, and that's what all data and NEI is about, giving you the choice. And our whole thing is create AI agents without writing a single line of code. And we're seeing the rise of this thing called the citizen data engineer. And this is somebody who understands the data, knows what they want to do, but they haven't been trained in writing code. And yeah, you have all these things that can write Python, but if you don't even know what a Python is, or you think it's some sort of weird snake, then you don't even know what to do with the Python. It's much easier if you can just build things without writing a single line of code. And of course, with FME, we give you doorways into the world of things like Python and R and all these amazing ecosystems out there, just like we're giving you a gateway into all the AI out there. And the other thing I wanted to show was, under the covers, we have these things we built, these connectors, but it was really great of Siobhan and then Dimitri to show that under the covers, the HTTP caller is really what we're using to do the magic and getting the strings right. And if I have to say one thing about the work that OpenAI and all the AI vendors have done, they've really made this easy to interact with, and everything is driven by really prompts that are just getting longer and longer. And the structured output, when we saw the structured output, that was music to our ears, because now we know exactly what kind of JSON we're going to get, and then we can use it. And like Christian showed, to both on the geocoding stuff, but also on driving the interface based on the data that's coming in. Many organizations, they don't have control of what the data looks like coming in, and using AI agents as the conduit or really makes it a big difference. So yeah, we're super excited, as you can tell. So yeah, so everything we showed today was on Flow, including the AR stuff that's coming out. Dimitri gave a nice teaser. We're super excited about that. And because it pushes the power of the FME. If you think about FME Flow apps, they push the power of FME to the web and the desktop user. This pushes the power of FME to the mobile user, the field worker with AR. And we're targeting the iPad and the iPhone, iOS. But if you did put on a headset, yes, you would be inside that whole AR environment. We just have not yet found a utility company that wants its users walking around work sites with an AR headset. There's safety issues, there's lots going on. But rest assured, the technology we built will work on iPad, iPhone, and it works in that headset world. So yeah, we've done it all. So anyway, next. Yep, and a little bit about SAFE there. Yeah, so yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Next steps and resources. Yep, and I think this is where I pass it off to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, fantastic. So just a little bit about our resources here at SAFE. We're all about free resources. Our FME Academy is home to free instructor-led training. So definitely encourage you to check that out. I'll also highlight webinars. We have lots of upcoming and on-demand webinars available. Check that out, safe.com/webinars, some great ones coming up in this spring. And our podcast program, we do have some audio-based learning available on demand over at EM360. Contact us. We'd love to help you get started. This is just the first step potentially with AI agents today. Info@safe.com. We'd love to help you with any of your data challenges there. And then our FME Accelerator course. It's 90 minutes, free of charge, and there's no complex downloads to get started. You just simply sign up and show up. Our community badge code. So if you're a member of our community, I will drop that in the chat now so that you can claim your badge as a thank you for joining us today. And if you aren't a member of the community, it's a great place to both network with other users alike and experts, and then also, gain any solutions to your data challenges. So I've dropped that code in the chat now. And once again, our peak of data and AI this May 6th to 8th. We hope to see you there. And at this point, I'll invite our presenters to turn back on their webcams. We still have a few minutes here. We can take a look over the questions together. I know we did get to most of them during the webinar, which is awesome. Thanks everyone for dropping questions in.
Yeah, and thanks to Dawn for taking care of, I believe, almost every single question that came in. So that's awesome. There were a few that came through the chat as well. A couple of people were asking about the sample data sets. So those will be available after the webinar. We'll send out the sample workspaces. So it'll be the sample workspaces from SAFE. So those will be accompanied by sampled files that you can test this out with.
Right. And the automations and everything will be there as well, Christian?
Yeah, if we want, we can do it with a package. Obviously, with the dynamic parameters one, that one will have to be held back because that's not generally available yet. But we can definitely create a package, or sorry, a project with that information.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah. I did see there was also one on Copilot. So some folks were talking about using the Azure specific OpenAI stuff, and that is currently supported in the OpenAI ChatGPT connector. So if you haven't already explored the OpenAI ChatGPT connector, that is by default loaded with the OpenAI, just asking for an API key, but it also has a drop-down option for Azure OpenAI, and that allows you to provide your base URL as well as your API key for your Azure instance. So if you're stuck with that, I'd love to hear from you on the FA community, or obviously follow up after this webinar, and we can see if we can get you started with that.
Awesome news, Christian. I'm excited about that. That came up quite a bit. So yeah, so that's great. Yeah, and lots of great questions, and I think we answered them all, but this is just the beginning. So if you think of something later or you want more information, please do reach out to us. As you can tell, we're super excited about what we do. Dimitri, of course, he's not a programmer, but he's a genius, and he gets very excited about what he does too, and he loves to And and he will be at the conference. We're going to be around. There's going to other conferences as well, and we just love to engage. Yeah, and you have seen a few things that will be released at the Peaks as a teaser, but suffice it to say, we have not released a lot of the good stuff, just enough to get you intrigued. Yeah. And if there's anything you want us to talk about in a future AI webinar or any webinar, let us know as well. And that's great. And I want to thank Siobhan for doing this. It's late in the evening there, and I'm sure she would rather be out walking the Thames on a nice winter evening. And her and the whole team at Tensing have been really great partners. They also have really embraced this AI thing like we have. And I think it's suffice it to say, Siobhan and the Tensing team, Christian and Dimitri, just do crazy, amazing work with AI and AR. Yeah. And thank you, Elizabeth. You're a rock star.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, and as Dawn noted, if you do have any future webinar ideas you'd like to see, AI specific or otherwise, please do let us know in that survey. I just dropped the tab with the link to that on the bottom left there. You'll see. We really appreciate any feedback as well. And huge thank you to our whole presenting team and Siobhan once again for joining us as a guest speaker today.
Yeah. And if anybody's in Orlando, I'm going to be in Orlando at the Gartner conference. Whether you're going to the conference or not, Happy to meet together and share what we're doing. And yeah, it's fun. Data's fun. Data and AI are real fun. So yeah, great. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. See you later.